Welcome into the Lucas and Lucas podcast. It is early March. Mike Lucas alongside Lucas Frankel as always. I'm doing this from my iPhone today, Frankel, because my laptop battery is dead, almost like the Nets' second half chances.
You know, you could have lied and said that you threw your laptop against the wall and broke it after the way the Nets lost on Thursday night, but why would you say that?
No, it's dead. It's dead, just like the Nets' performance in the second half there. They were up 16 in the first half. They blew the lead in Durant's return. It was demoralizing to watch as it just quickly unfolded. The first 5 minutes of the third quarter were absolutely treacherous. So we'll let you start here, Frank. How much do you make of the Nets blowing a 16-point lead in Durant's return against a Miami team that was missing some of their best players?
Yeah, for me, this is the worst loss of the season. I mean, Miami, like I said, with no Jimmy Butler, no PJ Tucker, no Victor Oladipo. I mean, they had dudes hitting threes who I've never heard of. Obviously, they had Tyler Hero play great. Bam Adebayo was completely abusing Andre Drummond the entire game. But the Heat are not. They don't have Jimmy Butler. You have to win that game. Kevin Durant's coming back. This was supposed to be, the start of things getting back on track, and they go out there and lay an absolute egg in the second half. I know they had a little comeback late at the end, but man, you cannot, under any circumstance, lose that game. It really felt like destiny, though, when Durant they were down 109-107. Seth Curry missed a three, and Durant shot a three. The ball was like 3/4 of the way down and then popped out. There's certain moments in like Nets history you just look back on. It's Durant's foot being on the line against the Bucks. That's like the biggest. Like if Durant was just an inch further back, and once that ball popped out of the room, I just knew that was the game. That was the absolute game, and it's just terrible. It's just this season has just completely gone wrong in every conceivable way. They're back at 500. I can't believe it. They were 29-16 just over basically 5 weeks ago. It seemed like just to think that we're at this stage now it's so impossible to imagine. My excitement for this season is next to zero. I'm almost at the stage where I just want the stupid season to end. Now Joe Harris is out. It's just, everything that's gone wrong has gone wrong. This is the season from absolute hell, and I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm completely writing off the Nets for the rest of the season, but as I've said the last couple of weeks, it's not time to bring out the panic button. It's not time. Keep it away. It is officially time to bring out the panic button. Now that Durant's back, and I know it's just one game, but now that he's back and we're hopefully getting Kyrie news in the next 48 hours, there is a chance for this team to either catapult forward.
Well, all right. So you said the Kyrie news, the mayor. I mean, listen, like Marks can say whatever he wants. There can be constant, positivity. But I have reached the point where, listen, he's not playing a home game this season. It's not happening. I would be shocked until the mayor goes out and says, I'm lifting the private sector mandate, which I don't expect him to do it, because every time he talks, he says, I'm not lifting it. I have no reason to believe that's going to change. Rightly or wrongly so. It's not changing. He's not playing a home game this season. So that line of thinking has to stop. And I'm honest, I can't
we're expecting to get news. You said 3 months ago there was no chance Kyrie Irving was going to play at all this year. He ended up playing. So
he's not playing at home this year because for whatever reason, I can't believe it. It is up to the mayor of a city, not the league, not the team. The mayor of a city decides who can play, who can't play in arenas. It is a preposterous rule. I don't know how we reached the point where the mayor is the one who has jurisdiction over this. Color me that. It makes absolutely no sense. And honestly, if I had a vote, I'd make Stephen A. mayor, and I'd strip him power to make these decisions because Stephen A. at least gets it. This mayor, man, he is living in his own little world. I just whatever.
It doesn't make sense that the mayor's the one to decide. But I'm saying from the Nets' perspective, this is the point of the season where it's put up or shut up. There's no more what ifs. We know Joe Harris isn't coming back now. We hopefully will get some clarity on Kyrie Irving one way or the other, whether he can play and or cannot play at home games. But that question will be answered. Ben Simmons, who we'll talk about in a sec, hopefully will be coming back, and or he's not going to play this year, and that's a lost cause. So it is put up or shut up time for this Nets team that came into the season with legitimate NBA championship aspirations, and nothing has gone right. We've seen James Harden finagle his way out of Brooklyn. We've seen Kyrie Irving battle the league, the mayor, and everyone on the COVID battle, whether or not he can play. We've seen Durant miss 21 games, comes back yesterday, looks elite. We have Ben Simmons now in the mix, who hasn't played a game since last postseason. This is the season where anything that has gone wrong or could have gone wrong has gone wrong, and it's Murphy's Law almost incorporated into 1 year. The one positive thing for the Nets, the one positive I'll take out from yesterday was that first half was a thing of beauty. And that is the first time that a lot of these guys have ever played together. And to see that immediate chemistry on the floor does make me believe that there is room to grow with Durant back, and the ceiling of this team, despite the fact it may end up in the play-in tournament and probably will have to win a game just to make the actual postseason, can beat any team on any given night. Now, last night, the second half was atrocious. It was an abomination. Is it because Steve Nash wasn't there? Is it because Durant got tired? Like, I don't know how to point the finger, give Miami credit. They got hot late, but there is something we can take from last night's game that even without Simmons and Irving, two of your big three per se, the Nets are up 16 on the number one seed in the East in the first half.
I refuse to look at it like that. They didn't have Jimmy Butler. The Nets should have won that game by over 20 points.
I agree, but I'm saying for the first time, and you never played basketball, Frankel, so this is impossible for you to understand as a non-athlete you are, but there is chemistry in basketball is maybe more important than in any other sport outside of a quarterback-receiver relationship in football, because there are certain nuances and things that you have to read off other players to see. There was a play in the first half. Durant had the ball on the right wing. James Johnson makes a back cut on the baseline and finds Patty Mills in the corner for a three. That's some instinctual things that you learn and you develop by playing with each other. And to see the Nets already have some of that basketball chemistry down pat without Kevin Durant ever playing a game with these guys is encouraging. So, yes, that's not a game they should have blown. That's a game they absolutely should have won. And I'm not excusing them, but I am saying there are some positives to take out of it from the actual basketball we saw on the court, especially in the first half. When I texted you, Durant changes the geometry of the court. And defenses can't guard the Nets the same way they do without him because he draws so much attention. If these other guys can learn how to play off him, whether Irving's on the court or not, it can be a dynamic offense. And we didn't see it in the second half, whether they got lazy, whether Steve Nash was in there, Jock. Like, I don't know what happened to it. But there was this 20-minute stretch of basketball in the first half where Brooklyn looked like they could beat any team in the Eastern Conference with or without Kyrie Irving. That is my point.
Right. And to be fair, like, this is basically a whole new team that Kevin Durant's coming back to. He's never played with Goran Dragic. He's never played with Andre Drummond. He's never played with Seth Curry. And that's, three new guys in the starting lineup and just to think that immediately they're just going to go out there and, dominate from start to finish obviously was a little, maybe a little excessive and maybe had a little too much expectation on it. But still, though, when you're facing a Heat team that had, it was Strus. Is his name Strus? This guy Max Strus is like the greatest three-point shooter in the history of the league. That was extremely, extremely frustrating. Joe Harris thing.
They completely took out Duncan Robinson, too. I don't think Duncan Robinson scored a single point. And all of a sudden, Max Strus is out here making 8 threes in a game. It's absurd.
So a couple other points. So Joe Harris, man, I don't know if I've ever seen in my life. I have to go back and actually watch the actual injury to see how bad it looked when it happened. But, man, a seemingly minor ankle sprain in the middle of November puts him out for the whole season. And I feel like if the Nets would have acted, we started hearing whispers about him needing a potential second surgery in early January. So if he would have just gone through with it then, he could have been back by, let's say, at the beginning of May, if the rehab went well, and potentially joined the Nets for like the second round of the playoffs. And I feel like that might have been a better course of action because it seemed like he never even came close to even practicing. Not that I'm there, but we never even saw him on the court or anything for that matter. He was constantly just on the bench in street clothes the whole time. So I thought the Nets really pushed that.
This is one of the most mysterious injuries I can remember in all of sports, not just basketball, but I'm talking football, baseball, soccer, whatever. You go back and watch a play, Frank, it looks like a typical run-of-the-mill ankle sprain. There was nothing gruesome about it. It's not like his ankle broke like Casper Ware back in whatever NCAA tournament that was. It wasn't a Paul George bone sticking out situation. It looked like a routine ankle roll. And my gut says something happened during rehab that he re-hurt his ankle and made it 10 times worse than it originally was. I have no sources on that. I'm just speculating because it doesn't seem like from watching that injury, it was A, bad enough to require surgery in the first place, and B, bad enough to require 2 surgeries to get it back to a point where he can play. And the Nets miss him. It makes sense now why Steph Curry was a necessity, or Seth Curry.
Seth Curry. So it is crazy how many people mix that up. It is absurd how many times I hear Steph and Seth. It is crazy.
Yeah, and I corrected myself after I said it. But yeah, it makes sense why he was a necessity for the Nets in the trade because they do need someone from that third guard position to be a shooter to help space the floor so Kyrie can drive and have the roles. But this team's so much more dangerous with Harris because the difference between Curry and Harris, Curry might be a better overall offensive player, but he's a negative defensively. He offers you nothing. And not saying Harris is an elite defender by any means, but at least he's 6'5" and has decent size to be able to prohibit an offensive player from getting from point A to point B in a direct line. Seth Curry, I did it again, is like a matador with a red flag and a bull charging through, and he's just like, whoop, go through, take your lane. He adds absolutely nothing defensively to the team, and Harris at least does give the Nets some semblance, not a great defender, but some semblance of a guy who can slow someone down in crunch time.
So here's my theory. I think, well, obviously Harden was obviously very disgruntled in the end, but I almost feel like I feel like Sean Marks sort of created a pro and con chart here, and he basically came to the conclusion that, all right, I'm gonna have disgruntled James Harden the rest of the season, no Joe Harris, with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving only play half the games, or I can make this trade now, get Andre Drummond, get Seth Curry. Obviously, I don't think he foresaw Ben Simmons being out this long, but who knows? But and get a guy like Ben Simmons in the mix and get rid of the cancer that was James Harden at the moment. And I think that's why he pulled the trigger. I honestly believe that the Joe Harris injury may have been the pivotal, quote unquote, obviously the Kyrie vaccine's the ultimate thing that probably propelled Harden out of Brooklyn, but the Joe Harris losing that shooting and putting all that wear and tear on Patty Mills, I think, led Sean Marks to the conclusion that I got to make a move here. So I really wonder if Joe Harris was either coming back or had come back much earlier, that if that trade still happens, because my gut says no, because that takes Seth Curry out of the trade. Because if Joe Harris is healthy, you do not need Seth Curry because you have Patty Mills and you have Joe Harris. So that would eliminate the whole Seth Curry angle here. So it's very interesting to try to speculate how this all would have transpired. Would they have gotten Tyrese Maxey, or what would the additional pieces what would they have been if Joe Harris was indeed coming back? Because Seth Curry fills the Joe Harris role. If Joe Harris, they don't need Seth Curry. So it creates a whole chain of events that it's obviously possible to speculate what would happen.
Well, it's a great what if, because imagine Tyrese Maxey was in that deal instead of Seth Curry. Maxey's been playing unbelievable.
Right. Maxey. It's hard to get a read. Maxey is very small. What is the ceiling for Ty? All right, 6'2", 6'3". He's very what is he? What is peak Tyrese Maxey? Is there a comp that you have that I could see? Because I don't know. He just seems like another small two guard who could score at times. Obviously, he's sort of going through the honeymoon phase right now that every Sixers player is going through. But what is Tyrese Maxey? How good can he be?
I don't know what his ceiling is per se, just because he was asked to be a point guard for the first 3 quarters of the season, and now he's back to his more normal position as an off guard who's a primary scorer. And I think he fits in exactly with what Philadelphia needs alongside James Harden, a guy who A, can carry the rock and set up an offense if needed, but also B, when Harden draws a second defender, you could kick it off to Maxey, and then you have Maxey going 4-on-3, and he's A, good enough to score, and B, smart enough and a good enough passer to make defenses pay for doubling up Harden. And with Embiid on the court, you talk about the gravitational pull of 2 guys at once. I mean, he's playing virtually 3-on-1, which is why we've seen his scoring output go through the roof since Harden's been in Philadelphia. I think overall, he's more of a glorified scorer, maybe like the ultimate 6-man, but he's absolutely a guy who you could put, alongside another really good guard, and he doesn't need the ball a ton to get his points. So he would have fit alongside a Kyrie Irving in a sense. He could have fit alongside a Durant, but he doesn't bring the same value as a shooter as Curry does, which is why I think Sean Marks in this scenario went with that. Also, one thing on Harris, Frank, is there a less consequential player in NBA history that may have caused such a revolving door of massively important events? I do agree. I think the Joe Harris injury plays a factor in the whole Harden trade going down, but it's not like Joe Harris is some bona fide star. I mean, he won a 3-point contest, but he's never been an all-star. Has there ever been a more inconsequential player that has led to such a dramatic chain of events down the line? I don't know the answer. I think it's no. I think it's honestly no.
I mean, I guess maybe you could argue DeAndre Jordan, because I feel like Kyrie and KD were going to go to the Knicks, and DeAndre Jordan, who was basically the Knicks spy when he was there, was basically, hey, you don't want to go here. And so I guess there's an argument made for DeAndre Jordan for kind of facilitating the entire thing.
Jordan at least has an all-NBA team on his resume, though. Now, he wasn't that at the time of the signing, but he does have all-star appearances and an all-NBA thing on his resume.
I mean, yeah, and if Joe Harris just hits 1-3 in Game 7, then
he's an NBA champion. Yeah,
that's why last year's playoffs hurt so much, and I'll never get over it.
Just one shot. Well,
not even that. If Harden had just been in shape and put himself in a situation where he wasn't going to hurt his hamstring again, if Giannis didn't stick his foot under Kyrie, if Durant's foot was an inch further back, if Joe Harris shows up even a little bit for Game 7, like if one of those things happen, like the whole narrative about this entire thing is just different. And I don't know, it just feels like the Nets. I mean, obviously Durant being there and like there will be other opportunities, I hope, but it really feels like the opportunity for the Nets to win a championship is gone. And it was a great, year and with a lot of excitement, a lot of hype, but just face it, like it's just not gonna. I don't want to like say it's definitely not going to happen, but it really feels like it's over. Meanwhile, the 76ers look like the team that look like they're on a crash course for the NBA championship. It's been 3 games, 2 against the Knicks, 1 against the Timberwolves. James Harden's basically put up 1 triple-double and basically was 2 rebounds shy of a triple-double and 1 assist and 1 rebound triple-double shy in another. And he looks, completely rejuvenated, like the player he was with the Rockets. Joel Embiid looks, continues to look like the best player in the league. Tyrese Maxey has taken a huge leap. And the Sixers look like the best team in the league. So what have you sort of made of here in this honeymoon phase right now for the Sixers? Do you expect this to continue the rest of the season? Or is this one of those things like last year with the Nets where he looks great for, the first couple months and then, things start kind of, falling back a little bit?
I think this continues throughout the regular season. I think the simple tandem of Embiid and Harden in the regular season when teams play 50% of defense is impossible to stop. Those 2 guys are too good individually and draw so much attention that either you double team them and you leave 3-on-1 for Maxey, Tobias Harris, and Tybalt, or you decide to go 1-on-1 with Embiid in the post or 1-on-1 with Harden, who all of a sudden is in shape and his hamstring looks great, which was the most predictable return from injury maybe in recent sports history. I think Harden, when he goes to a new team, we saw it last year in Brooklyn, point guard Harden is the best Harden. When he decides, it doesn't matter if I score 35 points and I'm totally
was he not doing that? Was he not doing that with the Nets earlier this year?
We saw it last year. I think this year, the way, and I'm trying to word this politely, the way he let his body deteriorate to a point where he wasn't able to get in the lane and kick, I think he was technically still a point guard, but he didn't have the scoring step in shape. Like this version of Harden is what we saw when he came to Brooklyn last year. And as you bet, he was the MVP of the league last year. When he plays like this, he's the most valuable player in the league because he's unstoppable in one-on-one situations. And as soon as you bring a second defender towards him, he's finding the open guy. It is unbelievable to watch him play basketball when he's motivated, in shape, and isn't determined to shoot the ball 36 times a game. It is simply a joy to watch and damn near impossible to stop. And Embiid, talk about a beneficiary. Embiid is typically used to facing double teams, and now they literally can't double team Embiid without leaving 2 or 3 high-quality three-point shooters open. It's the perfect basketball marriage in the regular season. I still have my reservations about how this works in the postseason, where we've typically seen Harden go hero mode more frequently, where we've seen Doc Rivers find ways to blow series leads, where we've seen James Harden decide not to show up in the same situation to the same caliber he does in the regular season. And I think one thing to watch as the Sixers continue to progress through the regular season and get to the postseason is, will James Harden be content being the second guy?
Oh, he doesn't care about that, Mike. He didn't care about that last year.
Absolutely he does. Absolutely he does. But now the pressure's on him. He forced his way to Philadelphia out of a situation in Brooklyn where he had a chance to win a championship alongside KD and Kyrie. And now all the pressure's on him to deliver a championship to Philadelphia. It's partially on Embiid, but it is on James Harden to deliver. And we've seen in previous postseasons, when the pressure is on James Harden, he has come up short time and time again. And had he gone to Philadelphia naturally, it's on him and Embiid because he forced his way to Philadelphia out of a situation in Brooklyn where everything on paper was perfect. It is solely on him to deliver now. There are no ifs, ands, buts about it. It is James Harden in a contract year's turn to deliver a championship. And I'm not positive we've seen James Harden play at the level and with the style he's playing with now in those moments where it's literally do or die. And that's where I have my reservations about this Philadelphia team as they progress towards an NBA championship.
Are they the team to beat in the NBA right now? Yes or no?
Yes. Yeah, in the East. I think.
Well, I'm betting. I'm gonna bet on them to win the NBA championship. Right now. They're 7-1 right now, and I'm betting on them because if the Sixers are gonna win the championship, I need to benefit financially off of it. Because I agree.
I agree.
I put $100 on the Red Sox to win the World Series, and obviously they ended up losing shortly after I placed the bet. So I'm about to put like between 50 and $60 at 7-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook on the Sixers to win the NBA championship, because I just don't see how any team can compete with the Sixers when the Sixers are fully loaded. If Harden's going to play like this the rest of the way, granted, I said the exact same thing about the Nets last year, and you could argue I was right. I mean, I wasn't wrong.
No, you were right. You were right.
So I mean, there's no reason at 7-1 right now. I think that value is absolutely absurd. So you look at the teams that are ahead of him right now, the Suns. I mean, Chris Paul, they say is going to be back, but I guess maybe what if he's not back for the first round? They might lose in the first round. The Phoenix Suns, the Warriors, obviously, Draymond Green. They're a completely different team. What confidence do you have that he'll stay healthy the rest of the way? The Nets are +6. How the Nets have better odds right now than the Sixers is honestly an absolute joke. The Nets are an absolute catastrophe of a team. They have no chance to win the championship. How are they 6-1? How do they have better odds than the Sixers? The Sixers have James Harden, who at the peak of his powers, as you mentioned, is the MVP of the league. Joel Embiid, the most probably dominant player in the league. And the Nets have better odds. I mean, it's preposterous. The Bucks
makes no sense.
I don't truly believe in Milwaukee. It just feels like last year was everything sort of fell into place, and this year sort of maybe not regressing to the mean, but those role players like PJ Tucker he was such a critical part of that identity, that team. Without him, and obviously Pat Connaughton's still out. Who knows when he's going back? Those were two critical pieces to that Bucks run. It feels like the role players beyond Bobby Portis, who you really don't know what you're getting on a game-in, game-out basis, don't seem to be that reliable behind those big three, Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday. And then the Heat, very, very gritty team. I like their odds in the Sixers the best in terms of winning the championship. I think it's going to be one of those two teams probably in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then so it's basically a survival of the fittest at this point. I think, true or false, the Heat and the Sixers have the best odds right now if you place a bet on to win the NBA title.
I still would throw Phoenix in there as a top 3, but yeah, those two.
If Chris Paul comes back and hasn't missed a beat, then that obviously changes things. But he, like I said, he might miss the first round. And the Western Conference is who knows who's going to be that in that position. But I wouldn't be floored if Chris Paul's not there. I feel like the Suns are absolutely beatable in every conceivable way.
I mean, they could play the Lakers, and then we may see LeBron James just go supernova, or they could play the Clippers, and who knows what happens with Paul George and Kawhi. I mean, those two, I don't expect to come back, but would it completely shock you if we don't hear anything about Kawhi, and then all of a sudden he's ready to play in the postseason? Like, you just don't know with that team. So, yeah, I'm actually with you. I think without Chris Paul, they are beatable.
So the Clippers, now that you mention it, are plus 10,000 to win the NBA title. Might be worth a little sprinkle. That's not a bad call. I kind of like that.
I mean, you just don't know. Like, is it probable? No, but would it be totally unlikely in a wide open Western Conference if Paul George and Kawhi come back? Like, they absolutely can run the table. Absolutely.
So I've reached a stage where I hate James Harden. I will never forgive him for what he did to the Nets, but in the grand scheme of things, Mike, I can't blame him for what he did. I mean, if I were in his shoes and I saw this punk Kyrie Irving behaving the way he was behaving and single-handedly sabotaging my chance to win a title, I mean, I would want nothing to do with that human being. Absolutely zero. So I really can't sit here and be like, man, James Harden, what was he like? I completely understand where he's coming from, and I really while I have a personal vendetta against him in terms of the grand scope of things, I completely understand and know why he did what he did.
He came to Brooklyn to avoid playing on Houston teams where it was just him and a bunch of random guys filled out the roster. That wasn't the case to start the season, but with the headache of Kyrie, with the injury to Kevin Durant, with the injury to Joe Harris, with all these two-way contracts and COVID, there was a stretch where it was James Harden and a bunch of guys that he did not know who they were a year and a half ago. Yeah, I don't like how he handled it. I wish he stuck it out. Like, I'm with you. I don't personally like James Harden, but I think playing with Kyrie Irving would be one of the most frustrating things in the world. You guys are a team.
No. Playing with him is great. Having to deal with him is not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Being a teammate of Kyrie Irving would be so frustrating. You guys are in a locker room together, or supposed to be in a locker room together. You're supposed to have the same goal, which is to win an NBA championship. And you're not going to get the vaccine for your own reasons, which is going to prohibit you from helping us accomplish what we're doing. Like, it would drive me crazy. And, station I worked at, we let a few people go because they decided not to get vaccinated, and it was company policy you had to be vaccinated.
Right.
You know what? That's their personal choice, and if they don't want to get vaccinated, I get it, and that's I'm not telling anyone they have to be vaccinated or whatever, but it hurt us as a station to try and accomplish some of the things we wanted to do because they weren't able to do everything we were able to do, and we had to take separate calls. It added complications, things that made things that should have been simple very difficult. And I can only imagine how much bigger and more frustrating and more difficult that becomes in a setting where everyone's making millions of dollars. This is literally life or death and legacy making for some of these players, where you have a guy of Kyrie's caliber who's not in everyday meetings because he won't get on board and do what everyone else has done. Everyone else made that sacrifice and Kyrie Irving didn't. And I could see where that gets frustrating.
There hasn't been a player in the history of the NBA who's just sabotaged more teams than Kyrie Irving. He ruined the Cavs. That could have been a dynasty. Ruined it after they won the title, I should have said. Ruined the Celtics, and now he's ruined the Nets. So the guy is, it's just a complete debacle with him, and I'm sick of him. And good luck, and I wish the Sixers good luck with DeAndre Jordan. He stinks. I don't know why they're bringing him in. Man, he's terrible. I hope he plays a lot of minutes because he can't move, and I'm very excited.
He's the worst.
So
yeah, they needed a backup big. That's the only reason they took him.
So last thing before we go, so Rob Manfred, as he was announcing the MLB lockout, was giggling and laughing, looking like an absolute buffoon. It's crazy that he's going to make the Hall of Fame. He is an atrocious. Everyone thinks that commissioners are awful and like obviously.
Wait, you said he's going to make the Hall of Fame?
Oh yeah, every commissioner makes the Hall of Fame. Bud Selig made the Hall of Fame.
Rob Manfred should not be allowed anywhere near the Hall of Fame.
There was a lockout under Bud Selig. There was this whole steroid thing under Bud Selig. He made the Hall of Fame. He's making the Hall of Fame. I
didn't realize that.
Well, yeah. So that's why when I tweet these things, I don't like to. And listen, I'm great on Twitter, and like when I tweet these things about him making the Hall of Fame, like he's making the Hall of Fame. Like there only been like 6 commissioners like in the history of baseball. The only one I believe who didn't make it was probably Bart Giamatti because he was only commissioner for like a week, and then he's the guy who suspended Pete Rose and died like the next day of a heart attack. But basically, if you're a commissioner of baseball, you make the Hall of Fame. But that's another conversation. So he's got the Astros cheating scandal, the whole 60-game season debacle, the changing the rules for pitchers in the middle of the season, which was absolutely preposterous. And now he's overseeing a lockout. But the big thing I want to talk about here is this whole talk about, we can wrap after this, is banning the shift. So I love baseball, and the whole idea of understanding, all right, this Joey Gallo's up. Where does he hit the ball? He pulls the ball every time to basically in that right field second base area. So basically, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put our entire defense, all 7 other fielders on the right side of the field and dare him to beat us another way. And if he doesn't want to do it, then we'll take the out. And it works basically 90% of the time.
Yeah.
It's basically a 100. And for the powers that be in baseball to be like, no, you cannot do that. You cannot do what makes absolute sense from a defensive standpoint. You have to play straight up defense. So that way Joey Gallo can hit his base hits to right field, and you won't be able to stop it because we decide that that's not right for our game. Like, how do you? If you come up with a strategy to play defense against somebody, and then the rules are like, no, you can't play defense. I guess they sort of do it in the NFL from a cornerback standpoint, but man, to just take that away as such an obvious strategy.
Well, it's like imagine saying you can't blitz. Like you're not allowed to blitz. You have to play.
It's
you
the
have
same
to play
thing.
cover 2. Well, it's like a Pro Bowl where they can't blitz and they have to play cover 2 the whole game. Like that. That's what Joey Gallo is virtually asking from MLB defenses. My favorite part of sports, regardless of the sport, is seeing how players adjust after figure out what their go-to thing is. So Joey Gallo is a pole hitter. Hit the ball to left field. Go the opposite way. Lay down a bunt. I remember David Ortiz laid down a bunt down the third base line once and beat it out. And it was a random game. We were in college. I don't know why I was on, but we were watching. And it was like the most exciting play.
Well, you're in Boston. Of course, Red Sox games are going to be on.
I know. I'm just saying it was a random like Tuesday afternoon game or whatever. We were just watching it because it was on. And he laid down a bunt in like the second inning or third inning and beat it out. And it was awesome. And that is part of baseball that makes it fun. I think the shifts to an extent hurt the game in a way because it eliminates a lot of hits. But I also wish the players just would adapt. Yeah, hey, it's not illegal to hit the ball to left field. It's not illegal to lay down a bunt. They're going all over there. It should be relatively easy to hit it this way and get on first base. I hate the monotony of baseball where it's strikeout or home run now. I'm all for the shift because it's going to make players do new things and hopefully add some variety to the game.
You make it so instead of adapting, they've sort of doubled down the other way. You're seeing more. I feel like you're seeing more and more. Just maybe just on the Yankees because that's all I really watch. Just more and more dudes that just come in and just are home run or bust and are all about pulling the ball and not hitting the ball at all fields. And then you look down the Yankees lineup and basically every hitter that they have is shifted against. And it's
Is LeMahieu the only one that's not?
He might. I mean, I'll have to check back again, but let me just look at the Yankees lineup from that wild card game.
They don't really. They shift Judge, but not a full shift.
So Gleyber Torres, I think they started shifting against. Rizzo, they definitely shift against. I don't know if they do it for Judge. I think they have 3 guys on the left side for Stanton. Gallo is the most shiftable player in the league. I don't think they shift for Gio Urshela. I think they started doing it for Brett Gardner. They definitely do it for Gary Sanchez, 3 guys on the left side. Higashioka, I believe they shift against. So, yeah, pretty much the entire team besides LeMahieu was hurt in that game, and Gio Urshela. He hits the ball at all fields. But I understand.
Two of the guys, that's it.
I understand the point that it hurts the game because it makes it so that there are more outs, less hits, less excitement, which you could argue equates to less excitement because there's less things going on because guys are just hitting an absolute rocket that would hit probably 98% that gets caught that goes right out of fielder because of the shift. So I get it from the standpoint where it's taking away the excitement of the game, but from a strategical standpoint, man, it's such an obvious way to just take certain potential threats to your chance to win a game out of the game, and for the league to just say that you can't stand there is almost preposterous to me. But who knows?
No, we just look at other sports. Imagine in football they said you can't blitz or you can't drop 8, and the Bengals, who had this masterful defensive plan in the AFC Championship game after the first half, couldn't make that adjustment because the rule said the defense you play to start the game is the defense you have to play the whole game. Adjustments in sports is what makes sports fun. LeBron James, before he was a 3-point shooter, had to learn how to post up and score in the post to maximize his offensive potential. Jordan developed a 3-point shot. Jason Kidd couldn't shoot to start in his career. By the end of his career, he's like the 5th all-time leading 3-point shooter. Players have to adjust to make the most of their potential, and sounds like Joey Gallo just doesn't want to adjust. That's on Joey Gallo. That's not a baseball problem. That's a Joey Gallo problem.
Yeah, he posted on Twitter after the lockout, his LinkedIn, and I was almost like, maybe you should look for a new career either way because you hitting the ball to right field it's unless I change the shift, it's done because you're completely useless in the days of the shift. So that's where things stand now. Who knows if there will be a season, but I'm sort of over it at this point.
Question to leave you with. What happens first? Ben Simmons plays the game for the Nets, or baseball comes to an agreement on a collective of the CBA?
Ben Simmons plays. I think it'll be at least enough. I would be shocked if there wasn't. I'd say by the middle of April at the earliest is when we have a deal. I mean, because in the grand scheme of things, Mike, it seems to me, granted, I'm not in the room. I don't really know exactly what's going on, but it seems to be that the owners have all the power here. And they're sort of sitting there in the room with their, kicking their legs up, drinking their scotch, smoking their cigars. The players are like, hey, how does this look to you? And they're just like, nope, no, not happening. So I feel like that's the way these negotiations are going. You have these billionaires just sitting there, they still have their money. The players are the ones who need money. And I feel like unless the players cave to what the owners want, this is going to continue. So it just feels like maybe by, when it gets to the middle of April, they'll start really putting the pressure on and all right, we'll have to cave. And I feel like that's what sort of what's happening here. But I really do believe Ben Simmons will be back by March 20th range. But who knows? He might, once he finally practices, he'll tear his Achilles and that'll be.
We'll see. We'll see.
That'll do it for this edition of the Lucas Podcast. As the Brooklyn Nets missed the postseason outright after ending the season as championship favorites. Unbelievable.